So I don't mean to scare anybody or be an alarmist, but important to highlight that America has a debt problem and we keep on just issuing new bonds.
Hi, I'm Kevin Nunez, investor, entrepreneur, and professor. This is Invested in Us, where we break down money, markets, and ownership so our communities can build real wealth and real legacy.
Hey everybody, my name is Kevin Nunez, founder of NJK Partners, and welcome to another episode of Invested in Us, where we explain money how it should have been explained to us. Alright, so let's talk about the stock market last week. Things got a little spooky due to the volatility, but by and large, things ended on a pretty positive note. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which tracks a couple of industrial stocks, hit 50,000 for the first time ever. So obviously people are making money there. The S&P 500 is up on the year about 1.4% as of last Friday, but that doesn't really tell the story. If you double click on that and you pop the hood, you're seeing some real significant outperformance in certain sectors. So energy is a subsector worth highlighting. As of last Friday, the S&P 500 energy sector finished up on the year 19.5%. I mean, that is significant outperformance to the S&P 500. The equal weight S&P 500 also finished at an all-time high, which tells me that the rally is broadening out and it's not just the top 7 tech stocks that are carrying the whole market. Other companies are also enjoying in this rally. Now, folks, if you're not invested, you are missing out. I saw a study from NYU that said 20% of the households in America own 93% of the stocks in the US. I mean, that is extreme concentration, and this is where the wealth is created. Friends, so let's talk about what is a bond. Let's not make it any more complicated than it has to be. A bond is simply an IOU. It's literally that simple. And in the agreement, the investor is agreeing to lend the borrower set amount of money for set amount of time with interest. Who can be the borrower? Well, who issues bonds? Governments issue bonds, right? Federal government, states, local municipalities issue bonds. This allows them to fund their operations. Then you also have corporations that issue bonds. We'll get back to that. And then you also have institutions that issue bonds. Hospitals, universities, such, etc., etc. Now, last week I gave an example of, what a stock is via a lemonade stand. Let's use that same example. If I have a lemonade stand and I think I can get this lemonade stand to every major city in America, but I just need a couple $1,000s to do it. Issuing bonds is a great way to achieve that because I can issue bonds, get the money necessary to fund my business and grow my expansion, but I don't give up any ownership in the business. And that's the most important part, that you have the opportunity to grow your business without bringing on partners or investors and giving up equity in the business you're working so hard to build. So at the end of the day, a bond is literally an IOU, and the investor is agreeing to lend the money to the borrower, and the borrower is going to pay back the loan in a certain amount of time. We don't have to make it any more complicated than what it actually is, friends. So friends, now let's talk about policy and economics. You've probably heard that America has a $38 trillion debt problem. These numbers are astronomical when compared to the size of our economy. We haven't had this much debt relative to the size of our economy since World War II, just to give you, an idea of how bad it actually is. A lot of that was brought on post-COVID, but really this has been a problem this entire millennium. So you're probably wondering, who does America even own this money? Who does America even owe this money to? And how did we get in this situation? Well, I just explained bonds a few minutes ago. And we have a $38 trillion problem because America has essentially issued $38 trillion in bonds. And investors, that includes foreign governments, that includes corporate institutions, that includes regular everyday people via their pension plans or their retirement plans, are all invested in U.S. Treasury, aka we've all lent the United States federal government money so that they can fund their operations. And that's how we got into this $38 trillion debt problem. Here's the kicker. America spends roughly about $7 trillion annually to fund our operations. But the problem is America only collects about $5 trillion in tax revenue. So America has a multi-trillion dollar deficit that we're operating on. Meaning if you were a person, if America was a person, America is actually spending more money than they make, and they have to borrow the money to make up the difference. That can only lead to one thing: insolvency, right? Because if you are a person that don't make enough money to cover your monthly expenses, at some point that's going to catch up with you. So we don't know when that is. So let's talk about America's $7 trillion spending problem. If you double click on that and see what America is spending their money on, you might be surprised. A lot of it is actually already on social programs that many people say are going to go bankrupt in the next few years. But here, America spends a large portion of that $7 trillion on social programs like Medicaid, Social Security, stuff like that. America also spends a large amount of money on the military, about $1 trillion a year on the military, which I'm all in for, and we appreciate, the service of these military members. But something that scares me long term is that America spends more money on the interest payments of the $38 trillion of debt than we do on our military. That's a problem, because that number is not going to go down anytime soon. So instead of providing social programs to help out, our society, or invested in schools or something like that, we're taking a large portion of our tax revenue to spend on debt. So, at some point that party may come to an end. So I don't mean to scare anybody or be an alarmist, but important to highlight that America has a debt problem and we keep on just issuing new bonds. So the silver lining is this: in America's 250-year history, we've never paid any of our bills late or defaulted on any of our bills. So it's, that gives me some comfort in investing in US treasuries. But the reality is that $38 trillion debt problem and the deficit problem will come back to haunt us one day. So friends, thank you again for watching another episode of Invested in Us, where we explain money how it should have been explained to us. Peace, y'all.